Robert Kelly. Any of you that know me know I have a weblog, both Blogger and WordPress. They're both named Something to Say If Anyone Hears. I've been doing that for about a year right now, and now I'm going to start to branch out to video. This is the first video, so it's what TV Tropes likes to call early installment weirdness. Hopefully it gets a little better, obviously. But I've been wanting to do a video for quite some time, and in this case, what I wanted to talk about is the new 2016 reboot of Ghostbusters, which I saw with a friend of mine. I saw it about 2 weeks ago. Now, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the sort of controversy that's been occurring on this. So many are aghast by the fact that this movie has even been made at all. For myself, look, I'm not too much of a fan of reboots and remakes, but some are quite interesting. And I'll tell you one thing: certain remakes can be a little better than the original. It doesn't always happen that often, but I'll give one example. Scarface, the Brian De Palma film from 1983, the one that had Al Pacino in it. That's a heck of a lot better than the initial Howard Hawks film from 1932, which I saw and I really wasn't too fond with. But Scarface 1983 is iconic. Now, I was a young kid. I was only about a year old when Ghostbusters came into being in 1984. And back in the 80s and 90s, Ghostbusters was quite a huge deal. There weren't too many purported franchises based on the horror comedy field. And not too many were directly related to cast members from Saturday Night Live or Second City TV. So it was a pretty interesting premise, and I'll tell you one thing: when I got my first DVD player, the first DVD that I did get was actually Ghostbusters in its 15th anniversary special edition. I don't have the 30th anniversary yet. Sorry. So I rather liked Ghostbusters. And I was okay with the sequel to Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters 2 was okay. It wasn't as great, but it was okay. I was also quite a fan of the animated series, The Real Ghostbusters. Like many, I liked the first 2, maybe 3 seasons over it. Once Slimer became like the fulcrum point of the show, that's when it changed. Obviously, it wasn't for the better. Now, for a long time, I know a lot of people had been talking about that there should have been a third Ghostbusters movie. And I admit, I was interested in wanting to see a third Ghostbusters film. But as time went on, with the exception of the 2009 video game, which I haven't played, but I have seen on YouTube, the cutscenes that are, well, edited to make it seem like it's a movie, it's pretty good. It's alright. Decent. Pretty decent. But for a long time, I kind of realized that there was not really going to be a possibility for a Ghostbusters 3. Now, a couple months back, James Rolfe, a man that I greatly admire, had talked about in one of his Cinemassacre videos the whole long slog from after Ghostbusters 2 to trying to make Ghostbusters 3, and just recently the 2016 remake, or reboot, if you will. Now, James Rolfe had a lot of different reasons to talk about these issues, but he forgot one important issue, which a lot of other YouTube commenters mentioned, and I knew about as well. And this is probably the biggest issue as to why Ghostbusters 3 was not made. And that reason is, well, during the making of Groundhog Day, which was one of the best movies of all time, starring Bill Murray, directed and co-written by Harold Ramis, there was a difference between how the film was going to be approached. Harold Ramis wanted it to be more like an actual comedy, laugh-out-loud type of thing. Bill Murray was a little more melancholic, mercurial, and those problems as to how the movie would be approached went on to the set. And the finished product is pretty excellent. It works both the comedy and the melancholy very well. But for a long time, Bill Murray did not really have much he wanted to talk about with Groundhog Day. And indeed, after Groundhog Day was completed in 1993, for about a good 20 years, he didn't really talk with Harold Ramis. And they were a pretty good partnership. About 5 or 6 different movies together. Meatballs, which Ramis co-wrote the screenplay for. Caddyshack, which Harold Ramis directed and co-wrote the screenplay. Stripes, which they helped in the screenplay department and they both starred in the movie. Of course, the 2 Ghostbusters films. And Groundhog Day. Icons in that field of comedy during that era. But things change. Time marches on. And for a long time, Bill Murray was not really interested in wanting to do anything that would involve Harold Ramis. He liked yes, everyone likes Ghostbusters, and as he did state a little later on in life, around several years ago, that the wounds of Ghostbusters 2 have healed. And that's a Bill Murray quote. So, he mentioned that. But it wasn't really up until late 2013 that Murray and Ramis actually got a chance to meet with each other one more time. I say one more time because Ramis wasn't doing too well with an autoimmune disease that he had. They spoke at length. This was around maybe early 2014, late 2013. We don't know what it was. It was a private conversation. My guess is that they did seek closure on not discussing matters for a long time. And in February of 2014, Harold Ramis passed away. He would have been 70 years old had he lived around Thanksgiving. Now, as I said, throughout much of that time, I know Dan Aykroyd, Ivan Reitman, Harold Ramis, Sigourney Weaver, Ernie Hudson, and so many other people involved with Ghostbusters were not so much Bill Murray, obviously. They were talking about wanting to do with Ghostbusters 3. Aykroyd, being the most optimistic of the sort, was saying, it's going to be in the works. We got a script. We got something to do with it. But over time, if people really knew what was going on regarding the fact that, Bill Murray and Harold Ramis weren't really getting along, people realized it was a moot point. Because it just wasn't going to happen. Murray wanted to branch out to something else. I think in his mind, he didn't really want to be considered the guy that had to be considered as... had to have someone help him out, really. And, the Ramis years of Bill Murray have later went into the Wes Anderson years and the Sofia Coppola years, and the years in which he is more of a interesting character actor, lead actor. He does more mercurial types of comedy. A lot more dramatic measurements. So, but unlike others, everyone realizes how much Ghostbusters meant. So, Harold Ramis had died in February 2014, late February, I believe. So, I know a lot of people were kind of in a shock. I was in a bit of a shock as well to say, okay, well, Sony announces that there's going to be a remake of Ghostbusters, or a reboot of the series. I was a little skeptical about it. But then something changed, which I know a lot of people didn't like, but I was more interested in. And that is, it went from being what I was hoping wouldn't occur, and that would have been, if you had Seth Rogen or Jonah Hill or any of Rogen's friends or Adam Goldberg or the Point Grey people. There was talk that they were going to get involved with a remake of this. I didn't want that. I like Seth Rogen, but I'm not really too interested in the pot humor, So really the interesting thing was to kind of go back to the well. And what Sony, mostly Sony, including former Sony executive and one of the film's producers, Amy Pascal, had figured was change the approach. Get a very interesting filmmaker that could do numerous comedy and action comedies, and in this case, Paul Feig. Not the most obviously great filmmaker, but I liked Bridesmaids. That was pretty good. I liked The Heat, really excellent. I didn't really like Spy. That was whatever. So he was attached to direct and get involved with his production company to have involvement with this. In fact, when Paul Feig gets involved with something pretty recently in a Big Tent type of action comedy movie, he's going to want to have some people that he's always had as his repertoire theater company, if you will. So, of course, Melissa McCarthy was going to get a big role. And I like Melissa McCarthy. I really like her. I even saw earlier this year The Boss. The movie really wasn't too good, but I like Melissa McCarthy in it. The acting in it from her and Kristen Bell, even Peter Dinklage, that was okay. Wasn't the greatest movie, but it was alright. So, McCarthy got involved, and what's kind of the next step? Well, if you're kind of making like a inverse Bridesmaids, if you will, something along that line, you get Kristen Wiig. She's really good. She's a really good actress. And you know what? Much as the first Ghostbusters movie was a semi-reunion of a lot of important SNL and SCTV people, this is kind of the reunion. Although, by that I mean Kristen Wiig. I mean, she's not been a regular cast member of SNL for 4 years now. But now you get a few actresses that are still on Saturday Night Live. And they're pretty good. Kate McKinnon is a fantastic impersonator of actors and noted people, both male and female. Leslie Jones has, in the last 2-3 years, really shot up to the top, and I'm really impressed by it, because I mean, she's 49, and this is like the prime. This is like the last couple of years or so, really, since I guess her getting involved with Saturday Night Live as a writer and then acting, and starting with her cameo appearance in Top 5, good movie by the way. Also Trainwreck, pretty good film too. Among other ones, she's really hitting it up there. I really like that. And they even got another SNL cast member in Cecily Strong. Pretty good. pretty. She's pretty good at what she does, and she's really getting up there in her impressiveness. So this is a good, interesting cast. You go into the well of having it be that right now, like the best or amongst the best Saturday Night Live cast members are female. I can only think maybe I could say probably, Kenan Thompson, Taron Killen, and Bobby Moynihan are probably good. The others, I don't know. So that was the structure. Kind of have it be like another Saturday Night Live, Groundlings, Second City TV, whatever, the Second City, Chicago comedy reunion. That's pretty good. I was more intrigued by it because it was like, now the tables kind of get swished around, and I can do some more interesting stuff. You may have a similar story, and I'll admit, this Ghostbusters remake is pretty much similar to Ghostbusters 1984. But it is really, interesting to see how the approach is with the film. How it turns things around. So in short, I was more intrigued with seeing this movie than I would have been with other remakes. I'll give you an example. Last year, around Christmas time, Point Break the remake was shown. I mean, my thought is, why the hell would you want to remake Point Break? I still have not seen it, but I did see the initial Point Break, and that was all right. So this looked to be a remake that, as I said, it probably wouldn't go to the level of the Brian De Palma Scarface, because it's very rare you'll get that. But you wanted to get something that could actually be of interest. So I was impressed with it. And when I saw the trailers weren't really as great, but they're trailers. They're not the movie. So I was willing to give it a shot. I was really, really willing to give it a shot. But in the end, I really felt like something had to be done regarding all this controversy of, well, it's a remake. I can see that. But really, I think all the talk from a lot of the fanboys, if you will, of Ghostbusters, the really huge ones, the people like James Rolfe. I know he won't want to admit it, but it's this way. Among others, were like, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this movie. I think, it felt like, to me, it felt like there was something wrong. I didn't like that tone, and I really still don't like the tone. You get all people saying, oh, now the Ghostbusters are women. Ah! I didn't like that criticism. And with that in mind, knowing that, the criticism is not really that valid in the end, I was like, this is going to become a political talking point. And really, I guess I'm amazed that a remake of this sort has become very much a hot-button political issue regarding women leads in action comedies, or action horror comedies, as the case in the Ghostbusters films. The validity of, can a female be funnier than a man? the idea of, you know, could you jumpstart a franchise again? Because this is purportedly going to be a jumpstart. In fact, Sony and Columbia Pictures and Ivan Reitman and Dan Aykroyd, they formed a new partnership named Ghost Corps. And the idea is that that's going to be like the new tentpole of action horror comedy movies, all related to this a Ghostbusters universe, which I'm intrigued as to what they will do with it, if they will do anything with it, and I'm looking forward to that myself. So, what really got me was certain people during the run, after the trailers and everything, during the run up to the film's release, they were saying, "We're not seeing this movie," and people like James Rolfe were saying, "I refuse to review it." I heard his reasons. I saw his videos. You can find them on YouTube as well. But I didn't really particularly like his argument. The reason I didn't is, I know he wasn't being sexist or anything. I didn't detect any sexism. But I detected something worse. Something worse than sexism? Yeah, in this case, for a guy like James Rolfe. I detected him being more of a Disco Stew. For those who watch The Simpsons, Disco Stew is a minor character that appears every so often, thinking that the disco high life of the 1970s and very early 1980 is still around. It didn't morph into new genres of music. And that's what I feel regarding James Rolfe and a lot of these other people. In fact, a writer at roger.com, if you can find the article on it, you'll put a search on the site, stated that for a lot of people, the idea is that Ghostbusters reminded a lot of boys very much of their childhoods when they would get all these toys from Kenner or Mattel or whatever, and they'd be like, do all the things that you do with toys, with miniatures. And they feel like you get a woman involved in it, it's you don't want to have that happen. Well, I never aspired to that belief. I think a lot of people, fans of Ghostbusters have said, "Oh, we really wanted a Ghostbusters 3 or whatever, and we got this remake." Again, they don't realize that for a lot of the creators and people involved with the first two Ghostbusters movies, priorities changed. The Ghostbusters was always going to be there, but things changed. I told you about how Bill Murray has his involvement in how he approaches movies and his comedy writings, things like that. Harold Ramis also had a bit of a change as well in his later works. Stuff like The Ice Harvest, a very underrated movie that I don't think a lot of people got a chance to see, and I really liked it when it came out 11 years ago. And when he tried doing something that was more in tune with, in his last years, that was more in tune with something that was approached to the sort of stoner comedy mindset of recent years, as in the case of Year One, it doesn't work. I remember seeing Year One. It sucked. So, things change. And people like James Rolfe, I really believe they don't want to accept those changes. And the only reason that they kind of now had, in the past few years, have had to accept, okay, this is what it is when Harold Ramis passed away. Because that meant Ghostbusters 3 is no longer in existence. character of Egon Spangler essentially died along with Harold Ramis. Let's be honest with ourselves here. So it's now time to take the initial blueprint of how Ghostbusters was made and repackage it and redo it for a new audience. And what was amazing to me was going the remake route and then making it known that yes, it's not a sequel, it's kind of a remake, it's more of a reboot. It has references to all the other past Ghostbusters movies and ideals. And the fact of the matter is that there are cameo appearances from Murray, Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, Sigourney Weaver, obviously, Annie Potts. There's even at the beginning you see a gold bust of Harold Ramis, a head bust of Harold Ramis. So there's that acknowledgement. Ivan Reitman, though he didn't really have any congenital involvement with this movie, does get a production credit and a bit of ownership in this film through his company, the Monticello Film Company. So, what's the bottom line? I rather liked the 2016 version of Ghostbusters. I thought it was well made. I found it very funny at certain times. I was impressed with the visual effects quality. I know it's mostly CGI right now, but, you know, yeah, I do. And I really liked the amount of chemistry and interactions that the four leads had. Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, and Leslie Jones. 5 if you want to consider Chris Hemsworth. He was actually pretty good as being a bit of a dunce until, if you've already seen the movie, if you haven't, skip this part, but if you've already seen the movie, at one point he does get possessed, and then it becomes this more interesting, suave, you do what I give you, evil person. Now, there were sections of the movie which I wasn't entirely pleased with. Let me tell you the biggest drawback. Now, the Ghostbusters movies have never really been known. I mean, I guess they kind of been known. They've been known for their bad guys, but in a way they're kind of secondary. I mean, in the first Ghostbusters, it's pretty much secondary. There is the Keymaster. There is Zool. There is Gozer. There is the Stave Puft Marshmallow Man. But it's really not that big and hugely important, is it? In the sequel, Ghostbusters 2, yes, there is the Peter McNichol character. I forgot the guy's name. And the character that Max von Sydow voiced. I forgot the character name too. So there's more of that. In this one, let me go okay. This one, I really didn't particularly like the bad guy in this. I get why the screenplay writers, including Paul Feig, felt to have the bad guy be this 20-something near nerdy man who feels bullied consistently, that he will want to act up and summon the ghosts of all the pasts of New York City to terrorize everyone. I can understand that, but the problem is it's sort of a very weak portrayal. You never really get a sense of him being this all-powerful individual. You get a sense of him being Just someone that talks a big game, but in the end is not really the person that should be considered a threat. I mean, he is a threat. It's not so much him as much as the demons, what have you. I do like how the fact is that once he does become his last iteration, that would be the no ghost sign enlarged. They use the proton packs to kill him, and they shoot it in the balls, near his balls, which I liked. That was a good commentary, basically saying, you know, these people who hate this type of thing, they think they're getting kicked in the balls. No, that's just really what happens when you get kicked in the balls. So I liked that aspect of it. It was well made. So, what then was the problem with this character? Well, I would say it was just not that interesting. You know, in a good movie, a bad guy should be of someone that you may not necessarily want to say, I'm going to root for this person, but you want to understand where he or she is coming from. And in this case, you don't. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the entire point. The entire point being that you're just a bad guy for no reasons other than you just suck at something. Fair enough. So I didn't really particularly like that. But on the overall, among all the other important matters of this film, the lead actors, the appearances from the likes of Andy Garcia, Michael Kenneth Williams, some of the other cameo appearances that you have, like Ozzy Osbourne as a shows up for a few seconds, Al Roker shows up for a few seconds. That's the type of stuff I like. Ed Begley Jr. shows up towards the beginning. Very interesting character. And I liked how it, you know what I also really liked? It didn't go to the entire premise of you got these two people or whomever people and they don't really like each other, then they start liking each other, and then something happens and they don't like each other again, and then at the big finale they like each other again once more. You don't really get that. You get more of a sense of that it kind of already happened before the film began. In a way, at least with the McCarthy and Wig characters. And in this case, you get more of a team up and everything, and parts where you may be thinking, oh, it's going to be like, I don't like you, you don't like me. It doesn't happen, thankfully. I liked that aspect, that they didn't go that sort of buddy comedy movie route, which is being done quite a bit to where it's just not that interesting anymore. So I like that. I was interested in how they played forth all the different aspects of the past movies and kind of referenced things here and there, lines from the film, props, locations, whatnot. And I was, as I said, pretty interested in how this movie was, had some interesting visual effects techniques. as I said, though, it's, I know it's not for everyone, but to those that aren't seeing it right now, you need to give it a chance. Because, let's be honest with ourselves here. There are certain things in life in which, you may hate, you may not like because you don't understand it, and you're like, I don't really like this type of stuff. I don't want to see this. What if it turns out that it's actually okay? That actually is a pretty interesting film or some sort. You may be able to get that with this case, with Ghostbusters, the 2016 version. It's actually a little better. It's actually a lot better than most people would anticipate. I don't think it's one of the better films of 2016, mind you. And honestly, I put this movie on an even par with Ghostbusters 2. But as I said, I actually like Ghostbusters 2, so that wasn't that big of a deal for me. This might be a little better than Ghostbusters 2, indeed. So, well, I think this should be considered a fairly good film. And my advice to its detractors is pretty simple. You need to grow up. It's, if you know, let me put it this way. So many people want to criticize almost everything in terms of a movie or a film or a TV show or whatever, because they feel like, especially I'm going to put this out there, it's the male geek cult subculture. The male geek subculture thinks that a movie like Ghostbusters was only made for them. That's not true. Not true at all. It's made for anyone that really likes to see something of this sort. So, when they say, well, this is exclusive to us, I could get offended by that. And a lot of other people can, because, you know what? I may technically be someone that is a geek. I don't classify myself as one. But I may be one of them that thinks that way. Nonetheless, I know that what I'm going to think about in terms of how a movie gets made or what have you, it's not going to be my business. I don't have the authorship or the ownership of these types of ideals. And to say that I do is a problem. So the geek subculture has to realize that when they make all these problems, or state all these problems, that it's like digging a very deep hole for themselves. Okay, then we see it a lot of times. Almost every comic book adaptation that becomes a movie or a TV series, you're going to get one person, or at least in one field, that will say, well, this is wrong because blah, 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 blah. I'm looking at it thinking, I don't really know too much about the comics or the graphic novels or what have you. And this is a movie, and it's or TV show or something else, or novel, and it's a different feel altogether, so really don't criticize that. Look at it at the merit that it has itself. But people do this. You think, okay, I'm on this internet, I'm on this area, and I'll just say whatever the heck I want. Well, what you say may not always be correct, and don't be surprised, in something like this, what I'm doing right now, that someone's going to criticize you and say, you're wrong, man. So, I think I was pretty tolerant of the male geek culture. But I think in this case with Ghostbusters, you can't really be tolerant about them. You may criticize the movie all you want if you've seen it, okay? If you're like someone like Richard Roper who saw this movie and gave it his equivalent of a 2 thumbs down, where he said, look, it's not really that great. Let me tell you exactly why. That I can respect a lot more than someone saying, well, I didn't want to see this movie, or I hate this movie because there was women in it. Is that really what it comes down to? But as I said, it's really two fields of people not wanting to see this movie and people being aghast by it. The misogynists are a huge function, but I think the bigger function is typified by James Rolfe. And if Mr. Rolfe is seeing this, I'm sorry to say that this is the case, but it is the case. It's typified by James Rolfe in being people that still figure that it's the 1980s in the mindset of the creative geniuses behind Ghostbusters, and that they could still do a third movie again or some sort. And the thing is that people change. People change, times change. And what was pretty significant can be a relic of a past gone by. You still like it, but it's of a different time. And if you do something again, like this idea of the new Ghostbusters, you have to change with the times. You have to be more willing to accept the fact that things are different. I don't know if the large community or sub-community of people that, gamers and things like that, geekdom, I don't know if they will ever really truly understand that what they are doing to themselves is only going to harm themselves in the near future. Because it's going to make the generalities that Paul Feig and Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy and others, even Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis's daughter, among other people, have said. Their generalities of, well, you live in your parents' basement, and you don't have a job, things like that, blah, blah, do, you're fat, what have you. Yeah, you know what? There are some that are like that. Okay, not everybody, thankfully. But don't be surprised if the ones that are complaining the most upon matters of Ghostbusters, without even actually watching the thing, are the type of people that typify the stereotype. Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't at all. So, anyway, I pretty much liked Ghostbusters in 2016. In fact, I'd be willing to see it again. I'd be willing to even get the DVD and Blu-ray disc. It's well made. It is very, very well made. And my only hope recently is for the likes of those who are saying, we're not seeing this movie, to give it a chance. Just to say, you know what? Just see it. If you hate it, then fine. But maybe you'd like it. I don't know. Just take notice of it, is what I'm getting at. So anyway, that's my thought regarding Ghostbusters 2016 movie. I give it, you know, if I were to grade it, I'd say maybe a B plus, possibly an A minus. It's well good. It's not going to be one of the best films of 2016. In fact, we got still a ways to go. But it's a reboot or a sequel or a remake that actually is. It's okay. It's not that bad. Not at all. So, this is something new, as I've said. Sometimes it can come out a little easier if I do it on a video log. Although other times it may be just as good for me to talk about something by writing it, such as my political views, socioeconomic views, my look at areas of the world today. But I figured I needed to mention about this on screen because, you know, film is a visual medium. Filmmaking is a visual medium, and you can write a lot on it, but you'd have to see and explore the movie in order to really get a good grasp on matters. So, but I should be hopefully doing a lot more of these videos in the days and weeks to come. Now that I've installed this Windows Movie Maker process, I really hope to actually also find better ways to edit this, to add some new cool graphics, things like that. Maybe come do more videography. I probably need to get like a professional camera or some sort. But this is a good start. This is a good start, I would say. Because this hasn't happened yet, and now it is happening. So, with that, I'm going to close this now. Should also mention to you that I've been watching and following a lot of if those of you who have followed my weblog and my posts, I have been following a lot of the social political matters concurrently. I got a lot to talk about with that. And, you know, just suffice to say, what I thought would have occurred last year has not occurred. I'm just baffled by what's going on. Really, truly am. So, hope you liked this video. And I do have a YouTube channel. I'm probably going to load this on this YouTube channel. You probably have already seen this on YouTube right now. You can click to subscribe. This is the only video right now, yes, but there'll probably be more to come. So until the next time I do a video, or I post, probably both, you have a good day, and go see this movie. Go see Ghostbusters 2016. Thank you again.